art is a truly global language that can change our perceptions about the world we live in. In our lineup today, dancing to heal in India, creating an underwater vision in America, and cartoons with a conscience in Gaza. Hello and welcome to Arts World. I'm Sana Hamouche. I'm here in Tunis, the capital of Tunisia, to meet a woman whose art put her country on the map. Sadiqa Kamoun is in the Guinness Book of Records for creating the world's biggest chandelier. But at home, she's credited with breathing new life into an ancient craft.
I live in Carthage, and one day I realized that I had no idea about how the ancient Carthaginians had discovered glassblowing, although they're famous for introducing this art to Tunisia.
Tunisian artist Sadiqa has over the past 2 decades single-handedly revived the ancient art of glassblowing in her country. Today she lives in Tunis, close to the ruins of the ancient city of Carthage. The Tunisian capital is well known for its artistic heritage, but while arts and crafts flourish in its rich souks, glassblowing had become a lost art.
I was studying ceramics at the School of Fine Arts in Tunis, but after seeing a film about the glassblowing techniques which disappeared in the 14th century, I found glassblowing to be closer to my heart.
Around the year 50 BC, the blowpipe was invented, which revolutionized the art of glassblowing. Now air could be forced down the pipe onto the molten glass at the other end, which could then be manipulated into different shapes and sizes.
The first blown glass came into being during the 1st century after the birth of Christ in the Syrian-Palestinian area.
From this area came the seafaring Phoenicians, who migrated from the eastern Mediterranean coast and established the art of glassmaking in what is today Tunisia.
During this period of history, glass was the diamond of its time. The crowns of kings and rulers were decorated with pieces of glass. Glass was rare, difficult to make, and highly coveted. After the glassblowing industry spread, glass was used more widely. As drinking utensils, as vases, as decorations, it became a common household item. The Arabs improved and developed this craft by adding gold, calligraphy, and design. Some of the most beautiful glasswork in history was produced at this time.
Sadiqa's interest in this glassblowing heritage was honed in Italy during her graduate studies in fine art.
I was the first woman glassblower in all of Moreno. Every morning on the way to the furnace, they tried to send me to the designers section. Then one day they gave up trying. They realized I was determined to become a glassblower. It was crazy. We would blow glass for 9 to 10 hours a day until we fainted.
When Sadiqa returned to Tunisia, she managed to get a small bank loan to open her own studio.
It took me a year to build my kiln. In the early days, I had a client who wanted a glass vase with a touch of silver. I had no money, so I sold my silver earrings and made a vase with a silver lining.
Sadiqa's friend Fawzia has long championed Tunisian artists, first at a local bank where she facilitated small loans to artists, and later at the Tunisian Ministry of Culture, where she played a central role in promoting Sadiqa's art.
Sadiqa is special, not only because she practices the art of glass blowing, but because of her historic and scientific research on the subject.
You learn through observation. First of all, you need to understand that it's like ballet. You have to move your entire body while glass blowing. At first, I found it very hard. The material is attractive to me because it's so transparent and fragile, and it's both feminine and masculine at the same time.
Sadiqa has turned part of her workshop into a museum to showcase her art.
At first, it was strange for people. They had forgotten this art and came to see what it was that I was doing. After 25 years of glassblowing, I've reached a stage where I want my designs to be art pieces in their own right. not practical tools, glasses or vases or chandeliers, but independent pieces of art. This is why, in many ways, I feel the glass cubes are a high point in my career. They're not practical items, but art for art's sake.
Dance have the power to heal. Indian dancer Sohini Chakraborty believes so. 12 years ago, she created the dance group Therapy to help victims of violence and trafficking. Her group has helped hundreds of women to dance their way to a better life.
Nasima's early. There's a lot to be done before the training session begins. Here at the Max Muller Bhavan Auditorium in India's eastern metropolis, Kolkata, Nasima meets dance therapist Sohini Chakraborty for a workshop based on Indian contemporary dance. But this is no ordinary class. For Nasima and her fellow dancers, it is an opportunity to heal wounds from a violent past. The participants belong to a unique dance group called Kolkata Svijet that uses dance movement therapy for the rehabilitation of victims of trafficking, abuse and exploitation. And this is just one of the many classes that Svijet organizes across India. Dance movement therapy was virtually unheard of in India in the late 90s. It was back then that classical dancer and sociology student Sohini Chakraborty began conducting classes at a shelter for trafficked women and children. Each participant had a story of violence and trauma buried within them. Disenfranchised from their bodies and emotions and shunned by society, they had lost their self-worth and confidence. But they hadn't lost the will to dance.
It's spontaneous, that's why it's dance and movement. Dance itself is very powerful tool for like open up your emotion and expression.
Immersed in the joy of dancing, Sohini students began to open up and use the workshops as a safe space to express themselves. No longer cloistered by the counselor-client divide of conventional psychotherapy, they began to articulate their feelings in a variety of non-verbal ways. The success of the initial classes led Sohini to launch the Svijet project in 2004. Its aim to use dance movement therapy as a means of counseling and consoling. It also sought to identify rehabilitated individuals from its workshops who could be trained to become dance therapists themselves. Svijet's dance philosophy emphasizes free-flowing movement, which encourages dancers to tune into their bodies. The idea is that this helps bolster self-confidence so that the participants shed their notions of being victims. The group also uses techniques from traditional Indian dance forms, while the geometric shapes of the Bharatanatyam dance form improves mind-body coordination. The soft and graceful moves of Manipuri dance calm the mind. In the 4 years since Svijet began, it has expanded from single-center workshops to national and international programs for victims of trafficking and violence, homeless children, and mental health and HIV/AIDS patients. But perhaps Sunwade's greatest triumph shines through examples like Nasima, who joined the group as a troubled student. Over the years, she has danced the distance from victim to creative artist.
I feel very good about myself because I'm working and live independently in a hostel. I pay my own rent. I teach, I have my group of students. I don't need to depend on anyone. I am the master of my own destiny.
As the Sunwade troupe steps out of the wings, the dancers take their rightful place in the spotlight. This is their stage. This is their time. The curtain has only just gone up.
We take a short break now, but when we return, we meet an artist who's making waves out of an unusual theme park. And we follow a cartoonist in Gaza who keeps challenging the censors. Hello and welcome back to Arts World. I'm on a location in Tunisia by the Mediterranean shore. Across the seas off the American coastline, an underwater project is being dreamed up. It's an art city which is built on an artificial reef. It cost $20 million, but the creators have come up with an unusual way to fund it.
Well, there's never anything been done on this scale in an artificial reef anywhere.
A few years ago, two men in Florida had an unusual vision. They wanted to build an underwater city.
The city is 4 miles straight that way in 40 to 45 feet of water on nothing but sand. The new reef is being born.
A bizarre statistic claiming 1 out of every 3 Americans wants to be buried at sea prompted businessman Gary Levine to come up with the idea to create a resting place beneath the waves. His friend, artist and sculptor Kim Brandel saw this as a unique opportunity to showcase his own creative skills.
This is the first project that I've ever done underwater. Well, he came to me knowing that I've been a sculptor for over 30 years and knew that I could take care of the designing and building of the project.
The plan is to build an enormous artificial reef on which hundreds of large metal and concrete designs will be built.
Well, the first idea was for it to be obviously the sunken city of Atlantis or something similar. I did not want to copy anybody's ideas, renderings, or whatever. I wanted to do my own thing. So I've been influenced, of course, by growing up and looking at Roman and Greek architecture, although I wanted to design my columns to look different, of course, perhaps a little futuristic or contemporary.
The columns are also unique because they are made with concrete mixed with human ashes, complete with memorial plaques.
These are actually cremated remains that have been cast into the molds, and these will go inside of the top of these lentils here. Pretty much all of the sculpting is my job. But the mold making itself, I have craftsmen that I work with to do all of that type of work. This void here is where we take the placements, which is the cremated remains mixed with cement, and it's put down inside. Then on the sides, there are recessed areas where the bronze plaques go with their name on it.
It may be art, but there's a commercial angle. They expect thousands of people will pay to make the reef their final resting place. This money will help complete the project. And as algae grows over the statues, Kim expects the site to attract fish and other marine life, thereby making it an attractive dive destination.
Most of my career in the last 20 years has been large-scale projects, which has given me some of the experience to take on this project. The engineer said we can't have a lot of sharp edges because they're going to be worn off. It has roads, and all the roads go to 41 feature areas. And these feature areas will be themed differently. They will have their own feature sculptures in them. I've tried to incorporate as many different size voids and holes that I can for the different size of fish. I've made the surface very porous so that all of the corals and polyps and that stuff could grab hold of the concrete easily.
To book a placement in the reef starts at about $2,000. That's cheaper than paying for a burial.
To complete the entire 16-acre city could take between 7 and 10 years. We've estimated that it could cost $20 million to build it. In 50 years from now, it will look more like a natural reef. So this is my mark on Earth.
Elsewhere in the Arab world, another woman is using her creativity to make an impact. Umayya Juha is the first woman cartoonist to work for a Palestinian newspaper. In the hotbed of Gaza, her political satire is both popular and revolutionary.
Here, along the shores of Gaza City, in the besieged Gaza Strip, art, politics, and journalism meet in the pen of Umayya Juha, arguably the Arab world's leading female cartoonist.
I was born in the city of Gaza in 1972, but I am part of a family of refugees from Al-Muharraqa, one of Palestinian villages that was attacked by the invading Zionists in 1948. Growing up in Gaza, we lived in a very simple home. I remember how the rain used to dribble through the roof.
Umayya Juha reflects in her cartoons the harsh realities of refugee life, which she knows all too well.
Our family was dispersed. My father was far away, and my mother overburdened with responsibilities. I captured this unpleasant life with my quill even before I went to school. Children appreciate art and understand cartoons. Children recognize me. They know me as Umayya Juha, the cartoonist.
Umayya has one daughter, Noor, from her first husband, a Hamas fighter killed during an Israeli incursion.
During my secondary schooling, I began reading newspapers, and of course the cartoons on the back page of Al-Quds, which was the newspaper I read every day. I would see the drawings of the artists Naji Al-Ali and Mahmoud Khail and be fascinated by them, although I was very young.
Editorial cartoonists are revered as journalists and artists throughout the Arab world. One of the most recognizable symbols of Palestinian society is Handala, the ragged 10-year-old Palestinian refugee, always viewed from behind, observing the world. Handala's creator, Naji Al-Ali, was assassinated in London in 1987. His body riddled with bullets, his killer never found.
Even though he has been dead for many years now, may his soul rest in peace. His pen is alive, and his work addresses many of our contemporary issues. Every cartoonist has his own style. A cartoon is about a single event or moment. Many people will be drawing this moment, but in completely different ways. The successful cartoonist is a person who is sensitive to people and realities around them. Their work ultimately becomes a reflection of life. This is the beauty of the cartoon. It's a kind of competition between artists. Who has the most brilliant ideas and execution, and who is able to sway the public and win them over?
Umayya is the sole woman in a club of at least 12 cartoonists whose works are published in newspapers read across the West Bank and Gaza. Palestine's leading cartoonist and elder statesman, the award-winning Baha Bukhari, points to the qualities that underscore the values of a great newspaper cartoonist. His character, Abu al-Abd, appears in the daily Al-Ayam, published in Ramallah.
My cartoons should be speaking about the people, not from political point, not this Hamas, this Fatah, no, the ordinary people.
In one instance, one of Umayyah's cartoons is believed to have prompted a violent backlash. After an Israeli invasion of Gaza in 2004, she depicted Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon as a boastful politician, oblivious to the dead and decapitated Israeli soldiers standing behind him. The Islamist newspaper Al-Risala printed Umayyah's cartoon. The next day, the Israelis bombed the Risala newspaper. While badly damaged, Al-Risala began printing again, and Umayyah continues to be their featured cartoonist. For the first day of Ramadan 2008, she commented on the bloody Hamas-Fatah split by drawing a Palestinian mother on her balcony, praying to heaven that her children, the Palestinians, might eat their Ramadan meal at the same table together again.
Unfortunately, we are living in a time when our people are divided and splintered. It's a good time for a cartoonist to become both a commentator and observer, and to use one's influence.
Umayyah is today happily remarried, yet the situation in Gaza has worsened. With fighting between the two main political parties, Hamas and Fatah, Umayyah is never short of subject matter.
The Palestinian division created a schism in every Palestinian home. And God willing, we will overcome those divisions. My hope is that I can leave my imprint in the drawing of cartoons in the Arab world.
And that's it from here in Tunisia. Join us for another episode of Arts World.